that's what I would tell my younger one of the things I'd tell my younger self is like, if you're gonna do this professionally, you need to find a way to do that in a way that feels comfortable to you, because it's especially now, it's more important than ever to be able to find ways to put yourself in front of people in as many places as you can. Um, I'd also probably tell myself that I should have been okay with maybe not just trying to do music full time at 22, having another job and sticking more to doing my own music and not being so cover music dependent for so long. It's only been more in the last maybe 3 or 4 years that I've been able to make, my sets when I go out to play either all of my music or mostly my music. And you build if you start with doing nothing but covers, and then start transitioning the other way, you can find issues in people not knowing what to do about it because they're used to seeing you in another way completely. And then they're
Mhm.
like, it's like, a band
It's like you
that,
build up a brand and then you shift the brand to something else, and that the
yeah.
transitioning is difficult, right?
I mean, not to it seems like an apt comparison now because of all of what's going on with this and, like Battlefield changing and everybody being like, "Whoa, why is it changed?" And
Mhm.
that's kind of that happens to bands sometimes too. If they're known for doing a kind of music for so long, and then they decide to make an album that's totally different from the stuff they made before, like a lot of people get kind of pissed about it as it turns out. And it's sort of weird because it's like, well, I can't do something different. I'm not allowed to be different, or, that's a little, it's just something you have to understand that people are going to do. And it's just it's a part of, the way people, I think, ingest, art and music and movies, whatever it may be.
I would like to read something to you. Something you said I found because I mean, even though we know we will get into the whole thing like where do we know each other from? Um no, actually let's start with that and then I bring that because I wrote something down you said. And I would like to repeat that, but
Boy,
actually we do
I'm
the
scared
we
now.
yeah, you don't have to be. It really impressed me, and I was grinding these words over and over again. I thought like I need to pick this up again. Maybe we give people a quickly impression of what's our story here.
Sure.
Um, so from my perspective, you know what? Let's start with your perspective. What do you remember? How did we meet?
So I remember I had been playing Battlefield for a while. I started personally really with Battlefield Bad Company 2 and had played the one previous, which I think was Battlefield 2. And I got, Bad Company 2, and I really started getting into it at that point, played BF3, loved it. And I think we all met, all of our little group of our fear group, um, we met during Battlefield 4, and I remember just finding a server online. It was a hardcore server
Right?
on Rush, and it was Fear server, and I started playing, and I believe I probably must have met Nick or Joe probably first, just through that,
Mhm.
but it wasn't long before I just was on that server all the time, because it
Yeah.
was like the cool people talking to each other, hanging out, communicating, playing the game, but also chit chatting about what they were doing, just otherwise.
Right.
And then from there, it's a bit of a blur because we played a lot together. But that's how I mean, that's how I know we met, and that was a long time ago. We're talking, you know, close to 10 years ago now. So um,
Yeah.
again, that's fond memories of seeing that banner in the server browser the first time. You're like, "Ooh, that's interesting. Let's see what that's about." And then just was on it all the time.
It was so interesting because I actually looked up a video today. Do you remember that we did a clan video, like a best of videos with different players?
I had until you just said it, I had kind of forgotten
I
about that. Yeah.
I looked it up today and watched it again, and I was about to bring it actually on stream, but you weren't in there somehow. I don't know why. You weren't in there, and I thought like, well, what's the point? He's not even in there. Like, I mean, you see, I'm in there, like, I think I'm in there 4 times, and every single clip of me is taking down the chopper with an RPG. I think this is what I remember most of the days. Like Battlefield 4, I really was a beast with the RPG and taking choppers down. This was basically the one thing I remember
You were a
doing.
beast in more ways than that, but, yes, that too.
Yeah, but so to give you another perspective, Joe, he mentioned it before, he founded Fear, and we all joined at that point, and it was a group. We had really like we were very international at that point, and we were
Yeah.
grinding our own little server, our own little space all the time, and we're playing Battlefield 4
That was the coolest thing
a
about it, I
lot.
think, was, like, how, how many different people we had from so many different countries. Um, you know, a handful of Americans, a handful of Scots, a few
S-
English.
One from
um,
South Africa, actually.
really, I don't who which
Hot fire, hot fire.
fire is hot, I do know
Fires.
that.
Yeah. He was from South Africa at that point.
Well,
Yeah, it
that's the thing
was
too,
very interesting.
I remember, I mean, the thing is I got to know like a lot of you guys because we just happened to be out at the same times, but there was definitely players that were at the height of that group. There were people that I never even got to meet really,
Yeah.
because there were so many people playing with everyone.
What's interesting if you look back, it was not Discord time yet.
No, no.
We haven't had a Discord at that time. I think we started eventually with a Facebook group where we were communicating.
Yep.
Um, at the beginning, I think we had, of course, we had a like our leadership was basically in battle log. I think we
That's
used
right. Yeah. Yeah, I
right? We
forgot about
used
that. I totally forgot
everything
about
at
that.
that point. We used everything over battle log. Like even if you were recruiting somebody new, you looked up the person on battle log first. Uh, sorry, excuse me. And then you got these people to join the platoons. So battle log was really important at that era.
Yes,
Um,
yes, indeed, and I don't kind of forgotten about Battlelog because I think it continued into Battlefield 1, but it wasn't being used really the same way anymore, and, um, totally forgotten about that, like, check out to see what their score per minute is and all that kinda
yeah,
stuff,
right.
"Alright, they're good enough, I guess."
Yeah, and then you start to make a second account because your first account didn't look that good.
Yeah, exactly, yes. It's like, "Oh, shit, I better start over."
Yeah, right. No, but that's really cool. That's really interesting. And if you look back, I think it was also like today it's different, I feel, with online relationships and online friendships. But at that time, and it's only 10 years ago, it was still something a little weird and off. Like you call these people your friends. You've never seen them. You don't know how they look. I mean, these are just online people you talk to, but we considered each other friends.
Yeah,
And funny thing, why we can say that is you just came home from a trip yesterday, right? Tell us
yeah.
about it. What
So, yeah, came home from a trip to Florida, and I'll do a little preface to this is, about 4 or 5 years ago, I have some family in Scotland, as it turns out, too. So that was a kind of a mutual thing that I'd had with some of these guys already when I was just meeting them, as there was a few of them that were from Scotland. I was like, "Oh, I got my stepdad's from Scotland." My stepdad raised me, he's my dad, but, so I went out to Scotland to visit some family, and, I was like, "Well, if I'm gonna be there already, maybe we should meet up with some of these guys." And we met up with Joe, Nick, Alex Ball came out, who's from the United States. He's from Florida, and we met a couple of others, sort of randomly, but that was kind of the core group that we had for that particular trip. And Alex's fiance at the time, or not at the time yet. I think that happened just after. But we went to Scotland, had an amazing time, did a bunch of amazing stuff. We went paintballing, and then we went out and drinking in Glasgow, but we actually went drinking first and then did paintballing the next day. Probably not a great order to do it in because we were kind of hungover. Um,
what?
oh, just a little, just a tiny bit. So fast forward to just this past week, I went out to Florida and went down to where Alex lives, and we hung out. Nick came down, and unfortunately, we couldn't get as many people together as we would have liked. But the idea of this, people you meet online not being real friends. Well, we, not only did we knew we, we all knew that wasn't the truth anyways, but then we really got to put faces and stories and each other together, and it was just amazing. And we had a wonderful time this past week down in Florida.
What is can you tell us one of these stories you were looking back to that you most remember about that
Um,
time?
which about which like a
Whatever
trip.
comes to your mind. Whatever comes to your mind, like you said, like you were sharing stories about that old time or
Well,
something like this. Like,
I can tell you something that happened that was very interesting just this past week. So the first night that well, actually, I had to come a day early because there was a snowstorm in Chicago on the day that I was supposed to fly out on Wednesday. So I left a day early to make sure I could get down there. Wednesday, me and Alex picked up Nick from the airport, and we went straight from the airport to a bar, a very uniquely American bar called Hooters. I mean, not uniquely American, but Nick was like, "I want to eat some chicken wings." So we're like, "All right, we know the perfect place." So we went to Hooters. We had some wings. We ate drank some beers. Then Alex took us to a place called Jacksonville Beach, and we went to a place called Keg and Coin, which is a arcade beer bar. So they have
Mhm.
a lot of retro arcade games and plenty of beer. And we started drinking a little bit, had played some games. We met a group of people out there that were, it was totally random. We did not know this was happening, but there was a big giant arcade game with two screens on either side of each other connected, a game called Killer Queen, which it's very hard to kind of explain, but these group of these people were out there doing a tournament for it. That a weekly tournament was a free tournament to enter, and we started chatting with them about it. They're like, "Well, you guys should jump in." And we're like, we're watching them play. Like, we have no idea how to play this at all, but they were super inviting. So the first thing we did is we went from picking Nick from the airport, picking Nick up from the airport to eating chicken wings to drinking beer to playing in a video game tournament in about an hour. And me and Nick lost on both of our separate teams, but Alex, of course, ended up being on the winning team. Son of
Of
a gun.
course.
Yeah, of course.
A
Eh,
ball.
yeah, he even said, he's like, "I'm really happy we won because if we didn't, I probably would have been kinda pissed." So I thought that was hilarious, and we just had a
We
wonderful
still the
night.
same.
Eh
That's beautiful.
yeah, w
Magic Man says as well, like it's so cool and so surreal the feeling when it happens, when you feel finally people. And I think that's a good description about like you get so nervous when you finally meet people and that it happens and you feel like like you have this connection and it's still there and it's nice.
there's still the thing where you meet somebody for the first time that you've been talking to for years now, right? And you still
Mhm.
have that feeling like there's still something we're gonna figure out, about and you do. And this time in Florida, we had all met each other already once. So it was not like there was not that like kind of testing the water a little bit. It was like we just jumped right in and we were
Mhm.
just like we'd known each other for 10 years, which we did, as it turns out.
Yeah, that's amazing. Next time I have to join you guys, that's for sure.
Yes, yes.
So let's go into the music thing. You're a musician, a professional musician. That's your living.
Yeah,
Like this is the difference. You're not just, I'm doing music, you're dreaming. No, it's your living and you build up your career around it, right?
yeah.
Um, maybe what I would like to bring up now is this quote of you I found, and you said that in February 2020. So this was basically at the beginning of COVID, when COVID happened and the first lockdown happened, right?
Yeah, just like that would have I don't know what the quote is yet, but February, at least for us in the States, it was just March 2020 is when everything fully locked down. I think we
Ah,
started
you were
getting
on
an
lockdown
inkling.
on March 2020.
Yeah,
Ah, we were before.
March 17th, actually. I guess it just hadn't quite gotten here yet fully, and or we weren't 100% sure what was going on. I was in Toronto in February,
I think
actually.
tw- I think that I think in America they were still trying to talk it down at this point and say
Yeah,
it's not
probably.
that big of a deal. And for us, because I mean we are close to Italy and we saw what happened in Italy. So here it was very quickly that they decided like we will, close the borders and we will go under lockdown. I think it was already in February here. So I didn't even know that. Um, well, then you said it even before, and that's very interesting. And I found it so good that quote because it also fits into this whole thing what we are dealing right now with Battlefield, for example, or in general with games which are not in our well, not what we suspected, what we get, and then we are disappointed. And the difficulties of us communicating with each other about a topic without being toxic. And you said, I quote now, we are very fortunate that we have what we have, that we know who we know. And I hope that when we are going forward, that we will remember this. But also remember that we don't start with an argument, we start with a conversation. We get to know each other first, and then we can argue later. Nothing is set in stone until you make it so. Damn, I don't know. I don't know why, but I still get goosebumps. And you just recorded that and then posted on Facebook, and I was like, "This is so fucking deep, man. I fucking love that."
You know,
Um, I don't.
that
I mean, you probably don't. You even know why you said that?
I do actually, because so I didn't know
Okay.
that's what you were gonna share the quote, but I did just today, I noticed that you had shared the video of that, and so what that actually so right after I'd gotten home from a really cool event that I got to play music at a really nice theater in kind of by my hometown in Joliet, a theater called the Rialto Theater. It used to be called the Rialto Square Theater, but it's an old theater built in like 1906 or something. And I went there, and a lot of other local musicians all got to be on stage different times, sharing their original music with backing bands. We nearly sold the theater out that night between everybody playing, and that was kind of why that I came home, I was just kind of emotional in a good way, having been able to be a part of that, and then you just experienced the whole night. It went by so quickly, and then right after that show, we walked across the street to a place that I play at all the time called Chicago Street Pub, and there was like an after show that we didn't expect to have happen, but a lot of musicians came over with their instruments, and we just got on stage and all started playing over there too. So that was kind of why that's exactly why that all that came out. And I was a little bit drunk, at a night like that. So I remember watching the video just now. I'd forgotten about it until I saw you post it, and I was like, "Oh wow, yeah." I mean, I still believe all that. I just thought it was kind of I was like, "Oh boy, yeah." I could tell in my eyeballs I'd had a few cocktails that evening.
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Sometimes we say stuff, and you can apply it to different situations, even. And look, if and that's also the interesting thing. Like me as somebody who saw that without having any context whatsoever, what happened there for you in that night, I make my own story out of it, right?
Yeah,
And I think this is what happens a lot. If you see arguments, like everyone is making their own story wha- out of it.
I was just I'm sorry. I was
What?
the squid eye said older sounds like a quality evening, and yeah, it was quality. I apologize for the interruption there. I'm
No.
not used to the chat thing. I don't stream a ton, I game and stuff, but so I'm kinda getting used to trying to read stuff, and then, I'm a bit scatterbrained. Anyways, I won't interrupt you here, I'm sorry.
Don't apologize. You're good. Don't worry. But coming back to this, this do you think would you agree with me that there is no absolute reality or not no absolute truth? It's more like what we make out of it.
Yes, and I was going when I think I knew where you were going with that, and I think that that also happens a lot with music. When you hear a song that somebody wrote and you listen to the lyrics, um, the person who wrote it may have had a specific idea in mind of what they wanted to write about. But if you, I think if you're as a writer of any kind, if unless it's nonfiction or something, if you're writing songs and you expect that people should get exactly what you're trying to say, it's not going to happen that way all the time, and it should be something you enjoy seeing people get a different thing out of a story that you've written and played a song about. Like, you'll meet 5 people and ask each 5 of them what they thought that song was about, and they might all have different ideas of what that was.
Mhm. Yeah. And that's a typical art thing, I feel. Like this also counts for if you read a book, if you read a poem, if you look at art, on the wall, like everyone sees whatever they see and what's reflecting for them to their reality in a way, right? I mean, this
Yeah.
is art in a way. Um,
Subjective, art's subjective, right? You know,
mhm.
it's not,
Stupid question. Do you have you ever have you ever had the situation where somebody came to you and said like, "I don't like your music. I don't like your style. I don't like how you play or sing or whatever"?
not so directly, thankfully, but I've had people come up and, like, you know, if I'm playing so sometimes I'll play some cover tunes occasionally, you know, and I've had people come up and say, "Oh, it sounded really good. I hate that person that you covered, but it was good." Like, there's the need to, like, like, they felt the need to tell you that they hated that, but you did it well. So it's sort of like a backhanded compliment in a way, but, um, I
That
you know,
sounds awful.
it was well, you know, you learn how to handle it after so many years too,
How
but
do you handle that? Mhm.
I go, "Oh, that's great," and then just turn around and then walk away, you know?
You wanna have a
Um,
drink?
yeah, it's like, "Can I buy you a shot?"
Yeah, right? Maybe it
But
gets better.
yeah.
Um, oh, that's amazing. Um, what did I wanna say? Give me a second. Ah, yeah. Can we maybe go back in time a little bit? Like, how did you even get into the whole music thing? Was it, like, something you were dreaming of right from there? Like, I never asked you that, actually. We never talked about that. Like, I always knew you know, like, Alex is doing music. Um, but I never we never talked actually about, like, how did you start it? Like, did you get a guitar or whatever in the when you were a kid, or did you look up to anyone, or
Yeah, so, uh hey, Ramo, how you doing, buddy? So my dad played music all the time and down in the basement, and he played a lot of classical, not classical music, but he played a classical guitar downstairs a lot. His basement was kind of his little place that he would go to, you know, relax or whatever. And I'd hear him play all the time, and I just loved hearing music come out of something that wasn't a speaker. I heard it come out of the actual instrument itself. And even before that, I think I always wanted to entertain people in some way. But I think part of that is because, at least musically, writing, it's like therapy a bit. So rewind again, I guess. Had no idea I was going to try to play music for a living until I was probably in my early 20s. Got a guitar when I was about 16, 17 years old. My dad's like, I'll get you a guitar, but you have to go learn how to play it." So I'm like, "Okay, okay, I will." And he taught me some chords, and then I just kind of started trying to figure out how to play the dang thing after that. And uh, I'd say around 1920, I started thinking about maybe I want to write my own stuff, and started doing that. And then shortly after, I mean, it was very quick, honestly. I mean, between 17 and then 21, I'm now doing gigs. One of the cool things about music is that, unlike some of other performance arts, you can start playing and making some money at it like very quickly if you spend time, you know, being good at, learning how to do it. If you can perform well enough and you can play well enough, you can start making some money doing it very quickly. There's just a lot more opportunity to go somewhere and perform, and then somebody be like, "Yeah, I would like you to come back, and we'll
word to mouth, probably?
yeah, yeah." So yeah, that's the weird thing. It kind of just started happening, and all of a sudden, I'm like, "Well, I guess I want to keep doing this, like, and I want to do this a lot." And then I was like, "I want to do this for a job. I think this seems a lot more fun than anything else I had done working before." And I had jobs
Oh,
between the maybe not 20, but a lot of jobs that I just worked for a while and was like, "Appreciate the time. I'm gonna be heading out in 2 weeks." I just nothing else seemed like I just I couldn't stay anywhere for very long.
I was thinking right now when when you got this first guitar,
Uh,
was there even YouTube then, back then? Like, where you
uh,
could teach yourself, like,
I
how-to videos or anything? How did you
yeah, I don't think there was YouTube yet, and if there was, it was very new at the time, because this would have been if I was 16 or 17, this would be 20 years ago. So I don't think there was any YouTube. What I was using was tabs, which would just be a bunch of it's like 6 lines on a screen, and then they would show you what finger you're supposed to put on each line, and that would kind of explain to you, like,
Mhm.
where your fingers were meant to be. And then shortly after that, you'd get, like, chords, which would just have the song with all the words, and then the chord letter above about the spot you were supposed to start playing it in. So learning it that way, you kind of already had to know the song in your head, at least from a lyrical standpoint, so you knew where you were going. Because she never really learned how to read music. Um, I played saxophone like for a year in junior high, and I love saxophone, but it's just the application for it, wasn't quite there for me at least. And so yeah, it was a little weird because again, you teach yourself how to play by learning stuff that you already know, you've heard before, but you have to know it because you've got no way to understand exactly where you're supposed to put the chords or shapes or tempo or speed. You just have to kind of know that already in that point. So, yeah,
That's very interesting. Do you remember the very first song you
that I learned.
yeah, you learned to play?
I'm not sure if it was the very first song, but it was definitely one of them. It was probably Wonderwall by Oasis.
AlexHoffer.com is your website, right? Not
Yes, yes, it
Yeah.
is.
Okay, guys. Here's the website. Check it out. Also, you can find him on Spotify, alexhoffer.com. Alex Hoffer Band. Actually, if you want to look it up on
Yeah,
Spotify, I actually hope to bring the music we had in the starting screen was actually from him. I had some issues with my recording tool today. Otherwise, I would have implemented it. But really, check him out. I think you have some really nice tunes there and nice
thank you.
recordings there. I really love the music. Um, so, back to the music. So you were 2022. What I would like to know is actually because from our what you said, I think was very interesting. You want to start a career, and I think most artists, and it doesn't even matter. I think what field you're in. Like I'm coming from photography, for example. If you want to start a business, most people fail because not because they're bad in their art, because they don't know how to build the business, right? And how
Yeah,
to build up the network and reach out and um, do you remember like do's and don'ts from that time? Like if you would talk to your younger self, like what would you have done differently and what you think like you did really good at that
yeah.
age?
So I'll say just right off the bat that I'm very good with networking because I love talking to people anyways. So that was never an issue. What I'm not good at even now is promoting myself very well because I kind of get it feels icky to have to keep telling people, "Oh, look at me, look what I'm doing." So I feel very uncomfortable promoting myself sometimes. That's what I would tell my younger. One of the things I'd tell my younger self is like, if you're going to do this professionally, you need to find a way to do that in a way that feels comfortable to you, because it's especially now it's more important than ever to be able to find ways to put yourself in front of people in as many places as you can. Um, I'd also probably tell myself that I should have been okay with maybe not just trying to do music full time at 22 and having another job and sticking more to doing my own music and not being so cover music dependent for so long. It's only been more in the last maybe 3 or 4 years that I've been able to make, my sets when I go out to play either all of my music or mostly my music. And you build if you start with doing nothing but covers, and then start transitioning the other way, you can find issues in people not knowing what to do about it because they're used to seeing you in another way completely. And then they're like, it's like, a band
It's like you
that,
build up a brand and then you shift the brand to something else and that the
yeah.
transitioning is difficult, right?
I mean, not to it seems like an apt comparison now because of all of what's going on with this and, like Battlefield changing and everybody being like, "Whoa, why is it changed?" And
Mhm.
that's kind of that happens to bands sometimes too. If they're known for doing a kind of music for so long, and then they decide to make an album that's totally different from the stuff they made before, like a lot of people get kind of pissed about it, as it turns out. And it's sort of weird because it's like, well, I can't do something different. I'm not allowed to be different, or, that's a little, it's just something you have to understand that people are going to do. And it's a part of, the way people, I think, ingest, art and music and movies, whatever it may be.
We actually have 2 questions in the chat. Let's, pick them up quick. So, Squid, I want to know when will you be in London? I mean, that's definitely, I mean, an option. Maybe not in London, maybe you're in Scotland for a gig, right?
Yeah, I would love to go to London. I've still yet to actually be in London before, which is kind of crazy because I've been to Scotland a few times, but to be fair, the first time I was in Scotland, I was 10, so I didn't really have the ability to just go off and do whatever I wanted. But I would love to come to London and play a gig anywhere. So if you know any good places that I should look into, let me know. And I would love to build a trip around that specifically. Honestly, I would.
All right, we are looking forward to that. And well, it was just your birthday. Do you want to talk about how old you actually got there? Guys, you have to
Yeah,
say happy birthday. It was just three days ago.
it was on
I didn't even,
Thursday. Yeah,
right? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. No,
thank you.
I can't sing.
So I'm 37. I'm 37. Um, 37? Yeah, I'm 37. I was 36 last year, so I must be 37 this year. It's
Mhm.
I guess that's how math works, most of the time. Unfortunately, the numbers go up as you get older, which I'm not a huge fan of, but,
I'm still older than you. Fuck.
I so I'll find a way to catch up, don't worry.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. All right. I just stopped getting older from now on because then I will never reach 40.
God, that would be
Uh,
great, wouldn't it? Just
right.
to
Right. I wait for you.
yeah, yeah, let me put the pause button on, I'll be back
Right.
in a
Right.
few years.
Pun here. We are youngins. Youngins. That's amazing. No, really. Well, I love that you said now what you would do is like to break it down again. You said like you would tell your younger self to how to. I mean, you have to sell yourself in a way, right? And
You do.
how to sell yourself in a more comfortable way, thinking about more creative ways to put yourself out there, I guess. But I think also when you were 20, it was so different to today, right?
It
You did,
really was. I
and
mean,
today
there
you
was
have so many more options, but also there are so many more people using it in a way,
Yep.
right?
There was no Facebook even when I started. There was no Facebook, there was no Twitter, there was no well, Twitter isn't really that's not the same thing, I guess, but there was no Facebook, there was none of these streaming things existed yet either. So you kind of had one way to go about it, word of mouth. You could build a website and then you had to record some music and just try to book shows, which in a way is it's not better necessarily, but it's certainly more accessible to somebody who has a hard time organizing things, uh, which I definitely do at times. Yeah, MySpace had music. That's right. I totally forgot about MySpace.
Everyone
Um,
forgot about MySpace. Like
MySpace,
MySpace was there
Face.
and then everyone forgot about it again.
What's funny is the MySpace stuff was actually a lot of fun for
Mm.
bands and musicians to use because it was the first time I think anybody like that had a chance to build like their own little like it was like a website you didn't have to buy, which was great, and it was very customizable, and it was the first time you were sharing things socially. Like obviously MySpace was before Facebook. I can't believe I forgot about MySpace. That's crazy. It wasn't
Mhm.
even that long ago, really. Um, but the other thing too, I think, is that I would definitely I'm happy that I do this now, but I would definitely wish that I had been more not so worried about whether or not I was like putting on an appearance that looked acceptable. Like, you don't need to dress up for anything. I mean, you can if you want, and that's totally fine. But if you're playing music, particularly like the stuff that I've always liked to go listen to is just people who wear the same clothes they normally would when they're out and they're just performing music at a very high level and doing it very honestly. And there's something about that kind of honesty in a group or a band or an individual artist that is I don't know. I gravitate towards that. So, like I started sitting down when I play mostly because it's more comfortable. B, you play a little bit better because your hand's not all bent and stuff. I know people play their guitars. I'm trying to get like the angle. People play their guitars with the like down here and everything's all bent because it looks cool. But the reality is ergonomically, it's not the best way to play an instrument. It's just your hand works better if it's flat, if it's your wrist and your back of your hand are on a flat plane. It just everything works better. So I stopped thinking so much about do I look cool and more about does it sound good? And I think that's definitely a better way to go, even though it's still all opinion based.
Mhm. That's interesting. I never thought somebody would make the decision for looking cool instead of sounding cool. Because in the end, you're listening, right? I mean, it's music.
That's the hope.
But
But nowadays too, though, there's so much music out there that is it's so centered on the event of it and the presentation of it and the music part of it sometimes is sort of secondary. Um, and it's
Give
more
me an
about the
example.
lights.
Give me an example of
Oh,
somebody who's doing it where
I would
actually there
hate
are a
to
lot of
I would hate to crap on somebody,
yeah,
you know?
I actually have yeah, I have 3 in my I have a few in my head already. I know what you
Okay, no,
mean.
you know what? I'll give you an example. Kiss is and they've been doing that for a long time though, but Kiss is an example of a band that it's really less about how good the music is or how great the story is or how, than it is about
Mhm.
it's the show you're going to see more so. And you sing along, but and they know that and they don't care about it. And that's the nice thing is they don't care and that's fine. That's
So,
that's how you
yeah,
should.
because they're still authentic in that in a way because
Yeah.
they are yeah, yeah, I see what I see what
Yeah,
you're saying.
Gene Simmons, like, is probably more proud of the fact that he marketed that band better than any band's ever been marketed than he really is even about the
Oh
music
gosh.
that they made because he talks about it all the time, which is interesting.
AC/DC 2.2. Mhm,
Yeah, I
mhm,
would definitely agree with that. A lot like, tons of stage presence, and with
mhm.
AC/DC, and Kiss was like I mean, like, they were different human beings. I mean, they looked like wrestlers from WWF came out on stage and started, playing rock music, and then there was fireworks and all this stuff, and that's what you went there to see, I guess, you know?
I'm thinking
Yeah,
right now
yeah,
in point
Gwar.
I'm thinking right now in point of stage presence.
I'd say G Gwar is I mean, I think their musicianship's probably a hell of a lot better than Kiss, though, to be honest.
Um, did going on stage and being on stage presenting music helped you as a person to grow? Like your um damn, give me the word.
Uh, um, Confidence?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. But we should do a game where, like,
Right?
you try to think of get me to say the word, but,
I just say it in German, but most of the times my problem is that in these cases I can't even remember what I try to say in German. And then I'm stuck there like somewhere is a word.
yeah. So, I bet I would say yes. Definitely helped with confidence. I remember the first time I went on stage at an open mic, I was not old enough to be in the bar because we have to be 21 here. So
Mhm.
I was like 18 or 19 and my mom took me to a place that she knew had an open mic and she knew the owner and she's like, "Hey, he's not old enough, but he just wants to play open mic." And the guy's like, "Yeah, no problem." So I went up and I went there several times, and that it's in itself definitely helped build confidence. But something else that happened when I was much younger, right when I was first starting off, that not everybody gets an opportunity to have, and I've been super lucky that this did happen. Is when I went on to this open mic, it was like a full band was there, and they were just going to let me play by myself because that's all I knew how to do. But I played a couple tunes and a couple of the guys came and like, "Would you mind if we sat in with you?" And I just heard them play and they were amazing, a really good blues band. And I was like, "Oh, yeah, that'd be great." And then they started walking up and I immediately was like, "Oh, shit, what have I agreed to?" Because like I'm no good at this point and they're really good. But they every time I came from then on, they would come and sit in with at least a couple of songs with me. And that in and of itself really helped make me feel very comfortable because I was being accepted by a group of very accomplished musicians very quickly, even though I really wasn't, you know, I still have a ton to learn, but I didn't have a clue what I was doing then. But they didn't have to do that. And in them doing
You
it,
know
really made
that they
everything
also
easier.
eventually started out, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think, I think I have the feeling if you're older, an older artist and more professional artist show more on the way and you see like a young blood like yourself there, you know what they are going through and you know how this helps them properly. Like they're kind of it's kind of, like
I've
a
I
maybe, I don't know.
I
It
think no,
sounds a bit like a
you're totally correct. I tried my best over the last, 10 years or so to I host my own open mics here too. So anytime I see somebody come in that's kind of like just starting off, I try my best to do as much as I can to like what not only welcome them in, but also just open myself to if you got any questions about anything, feel free to, let me know and I'll help you any way I can because it's a it's a hard thing to jump into and having people on your side right away is really amazing.
Mhm. Fugel actually had a question in there, and we will pick it up in a second. I wanna shift now to a topic. And again, have to bring a quote quick. Let me let me find that quick. Give me a second.
I'm gonna read some of these real quick. while you're looking.
So, according to the Rand Corporation, the creative industries have been hit hard, second only of the food and hospitality industry. Unemployment is particularly high for performing artists, of whom 27% reported being unemployed. When reported in August 2020, the vast majority of artists have likely lost some of all their income, not to mention losing the institutions on which they depend to earn their living. And there is no clear path back to pre pandemic levels of employment. So we are going back to 2020 here. And I'm saying this up front because it fits to the question: have you ever live streamed on the music on Twitch or YouTube? And I think you started because of the pandemic, you started actually live streaming because you were about to lose everything, right? At
Yeah.
this point,
You know,
because you had no gigs.
I had never really, and I'm not alone in this either, but I had never really even thought about live streaming music. I mean, we did maybe once or twice in the past a little short live stream of part of a show, but it was well before we knew anything about COVID. Um, and then, when March 2020 hit here, it took about a week for me to kind of because we also didn't know like how long this would last at first, but towards the end of that first month, I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do right now, and there's no way to be sure whether or not we are gonna get to do this, anytime soon. So it became real apparent quickly. I mean, I got to figure out some way to continue doing this. There was also, it wasn't like I could just, well, I can't play music. You really couldn't do anything else. So, um,
Yeah, it's not
you
like you can't find a job within 2 weeks or whatever. I mean,
no,
they're
nobody's hiring anyone that
yeah.
at that point either because like they don't, it's just so man, it was very, very scary, to not know, what whether or not I was going to be able to pay for my bills and keep the place I lived in the next 3 to 4 months after that point because I didn't know. At that time, I just kind of really gotten myself in a position where I felt good financially because I was just more of an adult finally for the first time, which fortunately took me way too long to get there. But um, yeah, it was very strange. So streaming was just it became, it was built out of necessity. Necessity is the mother of all invention, even though it's not an invention. Obviously, streaming was already around, but the idea of doing it that way, it went from like some people did it occasionally to everybody was trying to figure out a way to do that and try to, you know, find a way to.
I
It's
mean, you
like
have
playing
to
for
see
tips.
streaming music is not like streaming a podcast.
No,
I mean, you want to have the quality and acoustic instruments, I bet, is very difficult to manage to get the quality on stream out there, right?
it really is. That was the first thing that I knew when I knew I was going to have to do this a little bit like that. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to, get I don't know how I'm gonna translate that because not only do I would have needed a lot of equipment that I didn't own already,
Hmm.
but then, even if you have equipment that makes it sound good, you still have to hope that your interface and then your internet and everything else is picked up correctly. The sound on your end isn't always the only thing that comes into play when somebody's gonna hear, hopefully, the translation of what you're doing.
What were
So
some issues you went into there?
say again?
What were some issues you went into there? I mean, it's probably didn't go all that smooth from the beginning. So
No.
what were some issues you went into?
Well, the first issue, I immediately assumed, okay, I need to get like a microphone, a special kind of microphone, and do it that way. But I quickly found out, like, because I didn't have some of this other stuff, I didn't have a computer at that time. I had like a old crappy laptop. So I realized real quickly, okay, this isn't going to work because I don't have the appropriate things to make a microphone sound good. So I didn't even think about it, but I thought, oh, I guess I'll just use my phone. Turns out the phone microphone worked better than the microphone that I had that I bought did, which I blew my mind a little bit. Um, and then there was yeah, but you wouldn't expect that. It was like
No.
that was the last thing I thought would work better was the microphone on the phone. But once I found out that worked, I was like, okay, I can do some stuff from home now. Luckily, I was invited to some places where there wasn't anybody there, but like just a person that was running sound, and then there was a camera up, and then you'd come in and go away over there and sit down. Some stuff that was already set up, and that was really helpful. Being invited to do some things that were already kind of set for that.
Look who's here.
Oh, it's Mr. Weir.
Jason! Our lovely Jason is here, also a lovely guy we played so many games together with. He's also from Scotland and he was in the fear group. Thank you so much for saying hello here.
What's
Welcome.
up, Jason? It's
I
good
hope
to
you and the
see your
kids are
face.
great. Yeah, that's so great to see you, dude. Jason Weir.
I
You're not
just
supposed to use your real name, Jason, on Twitch. Man, he's getting old.
he was we missed him the first time we went to Scotland because I think he was working,
And he's on
and
YouTube. He's not even on Twitch, I just realized.
okay, yeah, yeah.
You can't do that. Doesn't matter. Oh, sorry. You want to say something? You went to Scotland? What?
Um, oh, and I was just saying, it was unfortunate because we when we planned these trips to meet each other over the last, the one 4 years ago, whatever, and this last one, like I know he wanted to come and he couldn't with work, so it was always unfortunate to miss him. And it's good.
Mhm.
Thanks for stopping in and said hi.
Yeah, right, right. So you went into the issue back to the music. So you went into the issue with your microphone, you sorted that out, and then you had your first I mean, what I imagine is if you're used to be on stage, being on stage, it's a completely different vibe. Like you have the people in front of you. You do have probably your things you do on stage to interact with the crowd. And now you're looking on a screen. You don't know if anyone is even watching. You don't know how they feel about. You don't have any feedback, right?
No, you don't. And to be honest with you too, the other thing about it is even if you do get it to sound really good, the other thing is people are watching it a lot of times on a phone or on maybe on a computer with tiny little speakers, you know. And that was the other thing. There's just, even when we found out ways to do this better, there was there's no audience there, so you can't feed off of it at all. And then on the other side, you're always aware that no matter how good you made it sound, particularly maybe in the place you're in, it's just never going to be the same as actually being there to hear it through actual music, live performance speakers,
Hmm.
in an event space. Um, so there's just so much that you don't get to give somebody in a performance, when they can't hear it done on an actual stage.
Actually, you might want to check. You might want to check with the Fugu streamer here. He is absolutely pro when it comes down to audio. Maybe you want to check with him later after your gig tonight, because Alex actually has a gig tonight. So that's why we had to start the stream earlier
I
today
do.
because he only has another 45 minutes and then he has to leave. So, and you know me, guys, I always need a little more time in my podcast, so we had to start a little bit earlier today. So, but we have still 45 minutes, so let's go. Um, so you had your first gig live, and that actually. So, what's the story there? What happened then? Like, what do you remember from what's going on? Like, you basically tried to get some fundings in, and I know it worked somehow. People helped you and another guy. I think you started with, right?
Yeah, I believe if I'm trying to remember what the first one was, and if I'm correct on it, I think it was a friend of mine named Eric Tothero and our buddy Herb Wild, and we went to one of their houses, and we went down to his basement, which kinda has a nice little setup, and, um, this was the first so we were like it was so weird. We'd never done this before, and we got a decent setup that sounded all right. And I think the way we did it is we recorded it first. This was another thing too. I just remembered this. We recorded it instead of doing it live the first time. What we did is we recorded it first, and then we're able to actually edit the sound, which made it much better immediately. It was just now it was like you know, everyone's watching it individually now on their own, as opposed to maybe having a bunch of people watching at the same time, which you can argue whether or not that's more fun or less fun. But ultimately, it made it a lot easier to provide a better show, even
Mm-hmm.
though people couldn't actually be there. We were able to make sure that we could listen back to it and make sure that we had everything dialed in the right way. And um, so we did that, and we just set up. I'd never had I had like one, I had maybe had Venmo at the time. And then I was like, now, or I think I had PayPal, but I had nothing else. So now you went from every musician went from having probably one thing to like every single possible way you could pay somebody. They had an account set up, so you could
Mm-hmm.
hopefully make tips. It was essentially like computer busking, basically,
Mm-hmm.
is what it kind of turned into. But we had a really good time that night. I hope this doesn't sound like I'm an alcoholic because I keep mentioning times I've been drinking, but you know, we were in such an alien situation that we were like, okay, well, let's start playing and we'll sip some whiskey. And we just kept sipping whiskey and kept playing. And eventually that whiskey was gone. And by the end of that show, I think we were probably pretty warm. I'd say pretty heated, pretty good and hot inside.
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, but it was actually a lot of fun. And it did make the idea of being able to continue that way and a little
Mm.
more approachable. And it wasn't like you get the first one out of the way and you're like, okay, we can do this.
Mhm. Mhm.
Cheers.
Damn, that's I so can't drink. I think this is what I'm most afraid of. If I would meet you guys and like if I have one moonshine or whatever, I probably would be drunk immediately.
I I love
So
I love
so
that you started with moonshine there. That's fantastic because that's some serious stuff.
whiskey is something like moonshine. What's the difference? It's
Mo
strong
m
alcohol. What?
Yeah, moonshine, I mean, if it's real moonshine, that's like a different level of alcohol. At least here it is. It's like you could run a car on it sometimes. It's that crazy.
You can want a cup.
I'm
Okay.
I'm
I'm
exaggerating a little bit, but to some extent, like, there are some small engines you could run a grain
Okay,
alcohol
the
on
other
them
okay,
maybe, you
okay,
know?
okay, sorry. My German, I didn't understand what you're saying. I thought you said like you could actually drive after drinking. I was
Oh,
like
no, no,
screaming.
no. No,
I
you
didn't
should never
understand what you're saying.
don't
So now,
don't
now
ever
I'm on the same
drive and
page.
drink.
Now I'm on the same page. I was like, we have to have a serious talk here, my friend.
Yeah, that would have been no, no. I'm absolutely in no way advocating for the use of alcohol and then the use of a motor vehicle.
All right. All right. We are safe. Twitch, we are safe. No, but that's super interesting. We would just skip the drinking and go to the next one.
Yeah.
Um, so so do you think besides all the crap that happened with COVID, but do you think it also was an opportunity for you to learn to do new things, or would you say like, no, I don't need that?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I kinda hadn't even thought of it, but, so before COVID had hit and we knew it was happening, um, um, I was just kinda starting to, like, cook food for myself, like, in a more in a more real way, you know? And then COVID happened and I had a lot of free time, obviously, like everybody else. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and just get as into this as I can. Cause I love food and I love food
Mhm.
that's different. I like trying different things. And um
Did you make sushi yet? Because I know you love sushi.
I did actually.
What?
Yeah, we made some sushi rice and then we just did nigiri. We didn't do anything crazy. We tried to do rolls, but sushi rice is like the most important part of sushi, really, as long as the fish is good. The sushi rice being the right stickiness essentially
Yeah,
is the
that's
most
it.
important thing. It's so we it was a little too sticky and we tried rolling it together and it was just like it was a kind of a mess. But doing just straight up nigiri or sashimi worked perfectly fine. We have a great place up near me that does really good high grade sushi fish, but that was something I never would have thought to do or even considered trying until now, really, or more recently, but,
Mhm.
I was living in a different house at the time when 2020 happened. I just like to refer to it as 2020, and I started cooking a little bit, looked up a couple of recipes, and from there, I was like, "Man, I really like to cook. This is a lot of fun,"
Mhm.
and not only is it fun, I think that if you have any interest at all in trying new foods or eating food that isn't just pizza or something, and which, by the way, you can make great homemade pizza. It's not that hard to do, actually.
By the way, girls, if you are watching, this man is still single. He can cook, he can make music for you, and he's I mean, look at him, He's out
Oh,
there.
hello there. It's nice to see
Hello
you
there.
today.
Right? Um,
Um,
that
so
sounds great. That sounds great.
I guess I just leave that part with just, if you have any inkling to like enjoy food, real food, it's a really fun process to learn how to cook, even if you're not good at it now. I mean, just like anything, you will learn how to do it, and it's
Mhm,
not as hard to do as you would think. And not only will you have fun and enjoy what you're making, but you're also going to treat your body better in that way. And
mhm,
there's a lot to be said about the diff, like what how much healthier your brain can be by eating better food too. So that kind of is something that I didn't realize at the time, but I started eating my own food, and it wasn't always the healthiest thing it wasn't always the healthiest thing, but that version of it made at home is always a better than a fast food version,
Yeah, even
and
if it's a burger, it's better
yep,
because you know what
100%.
because it's fresh, you know what's in there, etcetera, etcetera, etcetera.
Yep.
By the way, my favorite sushi, and everyone will kill me now for saying that, I don't care. I actually made sushi today.
Ah,
But my favorite sushi is not putting sushi rice in there. I put cauliflower in there.
okay.
I put cauliflower in a blender with cream cheese and sometimes with a bit of cream cheese to make it sticky.
Okay,
And then I do the rest like regular sushi, basically. And what I love about that is with rice, it can be that you feel really full after, right?
sure, yeah.
And with cauliflower, it's so energy food. Like I could like because you said about like what it does to your brain, and it's kind of it's a keto variant of sushi basically. And you have like so much energy after that. It's amazing. So you don't fall into this, you know, all right, now I'm
Ugh,
done, you know?
oh, oh,
Yeah, right?
oh, yeah.
And
That sounds amazing, actually. I never would have thought about that
And
way.
it's really easy. I make it actually quite often and I prefer it actually now. I mean, if I would go out for sushi, it's fine. I would eat regular sushi, but
Let
if
me
I
ask you
make it
this.
myself, I actually make it this way only.
When you do, when you've had sushi either out or now at home, do you prefer to do, like, just fish on it and then that's it? Or you do, like, rolls and things like
No,
that?
I won't, and I do all kinds of crazy stuff which you normally don't even put in sushi. Like sometimes I just do leftovers basically. So today I put
Okay.
in avocado, cucumber,
Oh,
even
avocado goes great with that, I
even
think, yeah.
even mushrooms. I put even mushrooms in there, which I never put in there so far. It was okay. I don't know, didn't give me anything. Was in there. But, I don't know,
It's
mango, I don't know, I like to roll now everything which I see there, and if I don't have the opportunity to buy the best fish, I just put in, regular salmon, you know, you like the salmon you put normally on the bread. I don't know if you have that over there as
like spreadable salmon?
the
Or like a ch
just
like or like smoked salmon?
Yeah, not smoked there. I try not to take then salmon with flavor or anything because smoked is kind of with flavor, right? So
Yeah.
it is salmon, but it's not cooked salmon, but it's like the salmon you put normally on I don't know how you say it, like on bread or something. I don't know.
I'm trying to think, is it, like,
I don't
not
have
in the same shape it normally would be? Is it like something you spread with a knife almost?
Yeah, it's very thin.
Okay. Oh, it's just super thin. It's just
Yeah.
super th okay.
It's always
Y
yeah.
y
So
I
it's
don't
I mean,
I
look, I mean, this is like the cheapest way if I don't have anything like right here because normally you can't just take any fish, right? You need to buy sushi fish. It's a
yes.
different fish.
Yeah,
You can't
sashimi
just
grade.
yeah, exactly. So and sometimes, you know, I just don't have right now the opportunity to go to that specific fish dealer and get this fish, right? So
I love calling it a fish dealer because it sounds like drugs a little bit
yeah,
now,
right.
you know?
Yeah, yeah. What? It's a fish dealer.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
you
how do
got a
you
g
call that? How do you call that? Like, it's a
you
what do you
you got a
say
guy
it?
you got a guy for some fish I can find? No, fish no, there's that's it's
I
just,
literally have
it's
to
not wrong at
drive
all, it just
I
sounds fun.
literally had to have to drive 20 minutes to get to this one place
Fishmonger.
where I can buy this one fish, you know?
Yeah, there's
So,
like well,
I'm
there's not a
lazy.
lot of places that like you said, even here, I think, unless you're living right on top of an ocean, it's harder to find places that, like,
Monger?
just that yeah, fishmonger, a
Monger is the
fishmonger.
right word? Okay, thank you, Magic Man. I learned that now. Monger. Okay. Oh, man. This is a great podcast, yeah.
You
I
know,
learned
it's
so much.
what's interesting is, so on Thursday on my birthday, they were like, Alex and his wife Ashley were like, "Well, what do you wanna do for your birthday?" And I was like, "Actually" oh, this is not on Thursday yet, but I was like, I would like to get us, like, a big good steak and some stuff, and I'd like to cook." Like, so I cooked dinner on my birthday, and me and Nick and Ashley and Alex all ate, and they're like they all felt uncomfortable that I was cooking because it was my birthday, but I was like, Listen, I wouldn't have it any other way."
Also, they have 2 babies, right? They have twins, right?
One baby, they've got 1 baby, they've got 2 dogs.
Ah, 1 baby. Why do I
Well,
have
Alex is a
always
twin.
thought that I thought always they had twins as well. I don't know why I remember that so wrong.
Alex is a twin.
I
He
know
has
he is a
oh,
twin, but
okay, yeah,
I thought, I mean, which is not unusual if you have it already, the family, there
sure,
is a
yeah.
possibility that they actually would get twins, but don't tell them. So it's one. But then I guess, all I'm saying is if you have a little baby there, you're actually happy if somebody else is cooking the food sometimes. So
Yeah.
that's a really nice thing to
Their
do.
their little their little kid is, Alea is such a sweetheart. She's
How old is
such
she
a
now?
she's like maybe like a year and a half.
Year and a half?
I don't think she's 2 yet, but
Hmm.
she's kinda walking around, she's doing that thing that you do, like, when they're just walking, but they don't really know quite yet how to, like, control body weight, so they get to
Hmm.
lean back and they're,
Oh
"Oh,
yeah, that's so
oh, oh,"
cute.
It was and she's just dancing all the time, and
Mhm.
it was really cool.
Perfect. Oh yeah, that's super sweet. That's super sweet. All right then. So you learned cooking. The original question I believe was, what did you um actually liked about, not liked, how did I say it, like what did you learn through the pandemic, what new skills did you learn, was
Yeah.
this whole streaming live thing, was it a good thing for you, or like what are the good things that the pandemic basically
Yeah,
um
what was the silver
taught
linings?
you? Yeah.
Sure. Well, I mean, really learning to enjoy cooking is the number one thing. I mean,
Okay.
honestly, because I realized too, like as much as I love playing music, there was lots of things that I wished I was probably doing that I didn't give myself an opportunity to do. Um, and so it started with cooking, and then it started working into like video editing was something I used to do when I was younger in high school, and I wanted to go to college for that, but I didn't have the money to do that, unfortunately. But I loved it. I loved it so much. The teacher and I got along great, and he would let me do stuff that they wouldn't let other students do. Like I got to make an entire project that normally he would make each year, but he let me do it, which was probably great for him because it was one less thing he had to do that wasn't during school. But um, I got, getting this computer that I just got this year, I would have probably not thought to get it and, in the same way. And music would have just been the only thing that I really spent my life doing. And, creatively, I like to do a lot of things. I just never I'd forgotten about them, I guess, at the time. And some of them I didn't know about, like cooking. But creating videos and editing video and making a bunch of things that you've got that are just pictures or video turn into something that is now a piece of art potentially, or at least something that makes sense now.
Mm-hmm.
Taking a bunch of stuff that doesn't make any sense and then making it into something that does is just a lot of fun for me. And I probably would have just been kind of plugging along, not really thinking about it had COVID not happened. And I don't know if I'd have been I think I'm happier now than I've ever been in my life, really, because I've got these other things now that I can spend time on and try to be creative with.
Speaking of other things being creative with, I think
Mm.
this is a good because we only have half an hour talking about how did you get into content creation, guys. Check him out on YouTube. He literally started 2021
This past
August,
August, yeah.
right?
Yep, this
So you
past
look.
August.
I never look. I'm watching a lot of content creators, and also from the aspect that I like to learn from others,
Thanks,
and
Jason.
And I told you, I think 2 weeks ago, we had a talk about like, when I told you, like, hey, dude, I'm watching what you're posting ever since basically now I know ever since actually you started, because I wasn't aware actually that you started only in August. And what you can see on your channel is that with the first video you posted, you try to you already were watching a lot of other content creators, try to learn from them. You
Absolutely.
and then bring in basically everything you liked into your own videos and then go from there. And you have really this typical thing already in there, from how to start a video, building up the narrative along the video and how to end the video, up to how to have a professional description, title, thumbnail. And this is something other people, sometimes it takes them like 2, 3, 4 years if they wouldn't have given up already till that point,
Yeah.
and you just started right into that. So what made you why did you start it? Because I never would have thought or guessed that actually you started doing video content creation. And what games are you covering? I think this is also an important question.
So, I started I had the idea to do it, probably uh, maybe a year before I started in August, but I didn't wasn't sure how to do it. Now I was watching some people already, maybe not as much people as I do now. Um, but I've always been a gamer that plays a lot of games, and it's a part of my life, and I like to tell stories, obviously with music, and I like to hopefully be helpful as well in other parts of life. So this was like an opportunity maybe to like do all that within a setting that I'd never really tried to be a part of, but I was always kind of on the outside, always looking in. And I think watching Jack Frags was probably something that I did the most of, and I love that, he streams now. I don't think he streamed as much before as he does now, maybe, and that could be wrong with that, but he does a lot of stuff that was always, he did the video and then put it out, you know, and that was really appealing to me because that's kind of the way that's my process in my head anyways, is to get a bunch of things together and then edit them and try to make them into something. But I it allowed me opportunity to play games more a little bit, and then edit, which I also love to do, and
Mhm.
then try to be creative in the way that I present it, hopefully. So I kind of already had it in my head that I wanted to have this kind of old timey, goofy kind of music because I like old timey. I mean, I don't play. I play more blues funk music myself, but I like listening to gypsy jazz and into old school piano and stuff like that. And so I knew right away that I was like, I got to find something that sounds like that.
Mhm.
That was always going to be the thing, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
that's where older than average gamer
Yeah,
came from.
you definitely have your own style there, and you bring it together with the music in the background. Sorry, I just cut in your word. What did you just say last sentence? That's where older than average came from? What do you mean? Explain.
Are
Well,
you,
because you had a
oh,
different name when we met 10 years ago.
yes, yes. So I was Tin Man 37, which was just that was
Exactly.
like that was some book I'd read when I was younger in high school that was about a spy or something. I thought it was cool, so I was using that since like PlayStation 3. Um, but older than average gamer just was something that I did. I spent some time thinking about like what would be a good name to use, and I think
It's
I
a bit
must have.
long.
Yeah. I I
Just
must
kidding.
I must have read somewhere like the average age of the typical gamer in either the United States or in the world is like 36 or 35 or something. So I was like, I'm just older than average. And then I was like, oh, older than average gamer. All right. Like it sounded cool to me. And I was like, I'm just gonna roll with it.
It
And
is.
and it's kinda nice too that I couldn't use that whole entire name on like a game tag, so it just became older than average, and
Mhm.
that is kinda more, "Hey, Nick,
Nick!
what's
Nick in the
that?
house.
We
Hello.
are
How
37."
old are we all now? Right?
You're only 22 though, Nick, so don't worry.
Yeah, exactly. We got
Uh,
older, you got younger.
but
You didn't tell us yet what games are you covering actually? And then maybe go back to Jason's question. Are you looking for any other games coming out this year?
yeah, so originally, I think I wanted to do stuff like Battlefield, but I quickly kinda realized, like, um it's a very saturated place to try to be seen, you know?
Mhm.
And then I was like, but not having a PC yet, I was watching a lot of videos on like more like tactical FPS games like Squad, Insurgency, Sandstorm, Hell Let Loose, let's see, Ground Branch, Zero Hour, stuff like that. So then I got the news that Insurgency and Hell Let Loose were both coming out on console. So I got a PS5 and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna get to play these games for the first time, and this is crazy. I've been watching people play them, but I could never do it." And that's when I was like, this is probably where I wanna go with this because I do have the most fun playing that kind of style where it's a little more towards realism than it is
Mhm.
towards arcade, which is just a little bit more up my alley, I guess. So I started playing Insurgency and Hell Let Loose on PS5, and then I got this. I'm gonna just show you this honking thing real quick. I got this thing um, in I don't know, like 3 months ago, 3 or 4 months ago now, and then I was able to start playing, Squad and some of these other games, and I knew then I'm like, okay, I'm going to stick with this kind of thing. I have a ton of fun doing it. There's also a lot of people that like are looking for help on how to either play or how to set up, or are looking for just more information about the game. And I had absolutely no problem, maybe helping to be one of those people who helps to kind of like welcome it. Tactical FPS games can be a little harder to get into because, you know, they're a little bit more aggressive, obviously. So yeah, not to ramble on like a idiot for too long here, but yeah, right now it's Insurgency, it's Hell Let Loose, it's a little bit of Squad, and a few other things here and there. But I would like to broaden that a bit. I just wanted to try to build a base of subscribers and viewers before I started trying to just do everything all at once. And another thing I do enjoy doing that I need to start doing again is I do these reviews occasionally of just anything, any kind of
Mhm.
game, it could be absolutely anything. I do it as a character called Chicago Al. And Chicago Al is a guy who talks a little bit like this. He's from Chicago. And then we review some video games as Chicago Al. And, you just have fun with it a bit. And you hopefully you bring some folks in who want to watch a game, play a game. Who knows what it is? But either way, we're gonna watch some video games. So I also get to be a goofball doing that.
Do
And
you do
that's
that character also during gaming when you join up with randoms? Are you
not
Did you try that? Because I was thinking about when I watched that How Let Loose video when you're talking about like, well, your wheel is really big.
yeah.
And I was like, does he hear him? Because it would be so funny to have this interaction, maybe even like talking to randoms.
So I haven't yet, but I 100% plan to start injecting that character into some like, you know, into live, or gameplay videos, like for sure. I just haven't done it. I'm not sure why I haven't quite done it yet, but maybe because I'm just kind of still getting used to knowing that I'm gonna be putting it out to a bunch of people to see. But I've done it occasionally, I just didn't record it, and like people are like, "What in the hell is going on over here?" So I think it works. It's definitely something that will be coming in the future more, not just from a review standpoint, but in games, just kind of
I
friendly
love that.
trolling a little bit, if you will.
Freaking love that. Guys, by the way, we are also working with him on something I can't tell you yet, but we are working on something funny as well with him and the amazing Do Strat. I really can't wait to show you guys something, but I'm really looking forward to do that. So I think more stuff to laugh with and about, and overall, having more laughs out there in gaming is something we could actually really need right now in this time, right?
100% agree with that. And it's interesting too because it's so in Insurgency Sandstorm, they have a functionality that's proximity chat, right? And when you're playing just in a random game with a bunch of people, I would say probably 75 to 80% of the time, it's just people using that proximity chat to just goof around. And that means that the enemy hears you when you're like coming into a room with a couple of guys. You're like, "Hello, anybody here?" They hear you coming in, and then they'll talk. There'll be times when I come up to a building or something, and I'm hearing a guy on my team and somebody on the other team talking back and forth to each other, and it gets really funny sometimes. And so that kind of opportunity to do stuff like that, like I feel like doing something where you kind of just go into a game with the idea of like a fun trolling aspect, and you're just kind of
Especially in a
goofy.
shooter. Like,
Yeah,
people are so serious. I mean, we also had it, like, back in the time of Battlefield 4, but I feel like it got even worse now with Call of Duty and everything. Like, people are so damn serious all the time about the games. Like, if you're not good enough in a squad in Warzone, they just boot you or whatever, or just leave you or just go out. Nobody can take,
yeah. The
um
too much, there's a place for competitive, and then there's a place for casual, right? And it, if you're not having fun, why are you playing?
Mhm. What's the point, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're not playing this to be angry, right? We're not playing any of these games to make ourselves mad all the time.
Oh,
And
some people are. And
yeah,
some I mean, there are two sides of the story. I think for myself, there are some creators also in the Battlefield scene who like to be, let's say, more the toxic variation. And I ask myself a lot, like, why would you do that? Isn't that like mentally really frustrating for your own mental health? But I feel there are some people really who enjoy that, who really, I don't know, this is their kind of happiness.
it's almost like, I think you learn that too. I think what happens for some people is maybe that when they start playing maybe a because I bet you there's also particular games that this happens for them, and other games they can play and be totally fine. But I think what happens sometimes is people will start playing a game, and then it makes them mad when something happens. But there's this weird like satisfaction out of that, and they keep coming back and they keep coming back for it. And then that particular game or that particular situation in a game becomes almost like a drug in a way that you have to keep taking. And and then, you end up with like 10 broken controllers and 2 broken windows over the course of a year or something. You're like, "What am I doing?" But I don't know if they're asking themselves that questions either. Like, there are definitely people, though, who clearly either get off on it or just are completely unaware that they're doing, and I have to think that the latter is just less likely.
Yeah, unawareness, I guess, is definitely a big point there. And I mean, unawareness about ourselves, we all have that. It's just for everyone in a different way. Like, give you an example. I had yesterday a very interesting talk to a good friend, and I mean, I kind of knew that already. But my big issue, for example, is that I keep myself always so busy that I always have a very noisy brain, and this keeps me actually from getting to my full potential and being as creative as I want to be because I'm always here, and I
Yeah.
never and then it's never quite so I mean, you probably know that if you want to write a song, it's either you have this momentum of, I don't know, I'm drunk and I'm just in the flow and I'm going or whatever, or you really have this space for your brain to get in this creative state where you can just flow and feel free to do so.
Yeah.
Um,
It's hard to I think for a lot of people, it's hard to organize thoughts in places that they're supposed to be all the time and not have it, like you said, everything is kind of happening all at once sometimes. Like I have that too, and it's hard to compartmentalize, where you want to put things mentally sometimes. And that is something that you can never fix that. All you can do is understand that's who you are, and you find a way to work with it, I guess, and embrace sort of the way that your mind works, because your mind works a certain way, and it might be similar to someone else's, but it's uniquely yours. And instead of fighting with it, sometimes it's probably harder, but probably a lot more rewarding to figure out ways to balance yourself and find ways to relieve stress through, you know, organizing your thoughts.
Speaking of which, I think that's very interesting what Chat is saying here. Like Fugu Streamer said, like we are talking about how Dice took away the scoreboard to reduce toxicity, but the source of toxicity in the game has nothing to do with the scoreboard. And I was thinking especially about this, and I did a completely stupid post actually 2 weeks ago, which I got immediately a message from Dice. But to I think to make the point here, and I think that's so true. And I have a question now for you because I think it's right now we live in a time where polarization is, for me, the biggest issue what we are living in right now. And what I mean by this is, you take COVID, you take Trump, you take global warming, whatever topic, hot topic it is. And I feel there's always these polarizations going on. It's either I'm for mask, I'm against the mask. I'm
Yeah.
for Trump, I'm against Trump. I'm for you against dice or you're for dice. And if you're for dice, you're a shill, and you can't say anything. You can't get a conversation, I feel, with anyone about anything anymore without being judged for an opinion you bring on. And I feel if we would try to learn how to step back for a second, listen, and you still can disagree. I don't think it's a problem if you disagree with me, but at least try to listen and have a conversation. So
Yeah.
my question is that, do you what comes to your mind when I say this, all of this, what I just said to you? Is there anything that pops into your mind because you're living on the other side of the world? How do you see it?
So, one thing is, I think the internet. has always been a place where it's very easy for people to kind of get carried away, obviously, and start, shooting off insults first instead of actually talking to one another. But COVID also, I think, probably heightened that because everybody was on. I mean, people were using the internet probably maybe too much or whatever you want to say. Social media, particularly, maybe using social media a little too much, even before that. But once COVID happened, everybody was on it all the time, and they felt like there was nothing else to do. So now you're pushing everybody into these spaces, and it's like there's no accountability either for uh, social media interactions with other people between yourself and another person. There's no accountability for any of that. And I think we went from like, yeah, I think people are a little too much on the internet, but it's whatever it is, to like everybody is just yelling at each other now because everybody's pissed about a lot of things, but now they're all pushed into the same area with each other too, and I totally agree, with what you're saying too, though, that, it's just I feel like not being able to actually sit down with somebody and have this same conversation I would be willing to bet that most people that are the ones, yelling at somebody online would also, if they were actually sitting there, they wouldn't be yelling at them. They would be a little more apt to sit, listen, and then maybe have a conversation as opposed to just having an opinion first. Having an opinion is great, but sometimes, obviously, that conversation is not just about you having an opinion. It's about two people or more, multiple people sharing an opinion that might differ. And I think when you're online doing it specifically in a only in a texting or a typing format, it's just really hard for people to objectively look across their aisle and notice and remember that that's a person that you're talking to and not just an avatar.
Hmm. Hmm. Sorry, I'm thinking. Um, I don't. Look. I'm thinking so much about this, and not only since a Battlefield release. I'm thinking for this. Like, I mean, that's basically what made me start Gamerswecare, because I felt there's a gap right now in the market for people having like deeper conversations, um, and and saying their opinions, whatever that is, and then having giving them the space to say what they want to say. Um, I don't have a solution. It's like I just this is my little footprint here for doing something against toxicity, opening up a conversation,
Well, let me.
and trying to get there, right?
Yeah.
So,
I
but
think that I think that what you're doing is amazing, and I think that just this sort of an open channel, so to speak, to be just real people to each other first, and then be gamers second, right?
Mhm.
Is something that nobody else is doing this. So I mean, it might feel like you don't know what you're doing, but you're doing something very good, and we're still figuring out how this works and how this progresses, but somebody had to start it and you did, so I think that's amazing. And I think just hopefully more people start thinking about things like this, but the only way they will is if you keep doing stuff like this. So you just have to keep doing it. I think you're doing a killer job.
Thank you. Well, it's not only me.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of which, not only me here. I want to thank, yeah, thank again here. Jitator Chips, Bloody Slayer, Fugu Streamer, so many people along the way I met and who share this little vision of mine with me, and you also, Alex, and support me. Squid Eye, of course. Beard, he is not here yet, but man, fucking love you, Beard. It's so amazing to see if you know eventually you're not alone, and then it makes it even better, because you're reaching some people and you can do it with them and share this vision together. And really, Cylon is also. Oh, Cylon is not here. What's going on with Cylon? We have to send a letter to Italy. Italy is not in the house. Damn. No, but really, thank you guys from the bottom of my heart here. It's you guys keep me going. So
You
thank
have
you
a
so
lot of
much.
really awesome people that clearly love what's going on here, and and that's the start to something amazing always, you
Pigeons,
know?
right? Someone get the pigeons. Um, we are you have to go in 9 minutes, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, I do have to run it, and I would love to do this, longer.
It's
But
okay, no worries. I mean, we started a bit early, and I'm pretty sure we will do this again another time about different other topics.
I really
Um,
appreciate you having me on it, and not only talking about this, but also, being kind enough to, you know, promote the stuff I'm doing too. So just thank you for having me.
hey, you did me a favor, really, because I never had somebody on the show who knew me even before everything started with Missy No Name, and it was actually amazing to have somebody here, which basically I was thinking about. Like, I think I personally started gaming with Battlefield 3. So I started on the PlayStation. Started on Battlefield 3. I'm thinking right now if I started even with the beginning of Battlefield 3, but yes, I think so. And then I switched to Battlefield 4, and when I switched to Battlefield 4, I think the first people I met was Jason and Joe and Nick. Yeah. I think this is how we met actually. So yeah, 10 years ago, and then you came
That
later
was
in as well.
what's funny is we probably ran into each other a few times playing Battlefield 3 because I played the crap out of Battlefield 3. Battlefield 3 was my favorite online Battlefield experience up until we started
Yeah,
playing all
sorry,
together.
sorry, quick. Put in the links again, please, guys, if you can. Wait, I think I actually have the website. I put in the website there. You can find the music as well.
So
Um,
so so the website actually is just alexhoffer.com. No, Alex Hoffer Band is just the way to search for it on Spotify.
I actually copy paste the link from your website. I think it linked me to that
Oh,
somehow.
I'm an idiot then.
No, 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 it's okay. It's
Crap.
I think it would work. But yeah, alexhoffer.com. And then the YouTube
Oh,
link. Yeah, perfect. The YouTube link for Older Than Average Gamer. Um, exactly. Then you find him on Twitter, guys. You find him on Twitter as well with
yeah, just tweeting a little, just doing some tweets here and there. No
right,
big
right.
deal.
Ah, yeah, thank you, Joe. That's so nice. Yeah, put in the links here again.
Cheers, man. Thanks. Thank you guys. Thank you to all the nice things that you guys been saying to all of you guys watching. I keep poking over, but I've never done I've done some interviews before, but they're always not like this where you're doing both. So I never quite sure when to go from one to the other. But I've been reading all of them, and they're super
It's
cool.
yeah, it's confusing, but you get used to it.
I get confused a
I
lot. What can I
actually
say?
honestly, I mean, we have today we don't have so many viewers, as I mean, we have sometimes up to over 100 viewers. But honestly, I enjoy these talks the most because I feel it so much. I can connect so much more than to be, oh, just Rex at the house. How you doing, man?
Hello.
So I feel like I can connect so good than to people when they're in the chat, and I can read up better. We can take a comment. I actually really enjoy these smaller streams a
This
lot.
was a lot of fun. I had a really good time doing this. Not between reminiscing and just again bringing the reality of the fact that we know each other and we're friends out is really cool. It's just
Right,
amazing.
right.
And
So,
I get to see your face for the whole time too, and not just hear your voice, which is fantastic. So,
have we never see each other before? Well, not
uh,
like this, right? I think we
yeah,
never not like this, right?
nope, never
Well,
like this.
it was about time. So you don't just hear me because I'm a screamer, guys. If I play video games, it could be Mizzy can be very loud. I can
Oh
be
yeah, I've heard some Mizzy
y-
screaming for sure, 100%.
He's there! He's
What?
there! Oh my god. No, good times. Yeah, I still scream, so nothing changed. I'm still the same. Um, all right, guys, we put the links in here. Just a reminder to the end. We will have the amazing Dan Mitri next week in the show. So we will be back next Sunday, and we're looking forward to that. We will talk about creativity. Actually, this is what we are planning to talk a lot about. We will not talk so much about gaming, and I think we don't have to because this guy is really amazing. He's such a creative, inspiring person. Freaking love that dude.